Making a tunnel. I was watching a rerun of Star Trek one evening after coming home when my kids, Justin and Rachel, then 12 and 9, came into the living room with a card table. They set it up between me and the TV. I sat up taller in the recliner so I could see over it, as they brought 2 chairs in and set them across from each other. Then they draped a blanket over the entire works. It blocked the lower half of the show. I cleared my throat so they could see through the cloaking device that Dad was watching a show and they were blocking his view. They didn't get the hint, so I broke out the Papa Bear voice. "What do you 2 think you're doing?" Justin glanced up and saw me. "Making a tunnel. Want to help?" I stared at their contraption for a minute. I remembered fondly doing the exact same thing as a kid, setting up a card table and draping a blanket over it, making a cave. I could see myself on my hands and knees, crawling under the chairs into the cave, having fun with my kids. I could see my back and knees aching from the exertion, and I could just see, over the top of the card table, Captain Kirk asking Spock to scan for life forms. I leaned back in my recliner. Daddy's tired after a long day at work and just wants to watch his show. Go make a tunnel somewhere else. They looked at each other, shrugged, and sauntered off. I fully expected, and I meant, for them to take the card table and chairs and move them into a different room, but they didn't. So I climbed out of the recliner, folded up the table and chairs, and put them away. I folded the blanket and stored it in the linen closet and sat back down. Spock and Kirk were down on a planet's surface, fighting with the life forms I didn't see them scan. I'd missed about 5 minutes of my show, but it was a rerun I'd seen several times, and I knew I hadn't missed anything important. Or so I thought. Saturday rolled around, and I headed upstairs to do some more work on the new man cave extra bedroom. I'd already insulated and done the electrical, AC, and drywall. I was going to need to tape and mud, sand, and paint, and I'd be done. It was not a task I was looking forward to, so I'd put it off for weeks. When I got to the room, I noticed that our old sleeper couch, Mary Queen of Scots, was pulled away from the wall and the bed had been opened up. The cushions were laying alongside the bed. It crossed my mind that someone must have been sleeping in the spare room. It would have been somewhat comfortable, as the lights, electricity, and AC had all been run, and the room was drywalled in. It just would have been rather odd, and I couldn't imagine what guest we'd had. I was about to back out of the room and ask my wife who'd been sleeping in the spare room when something caught my eye. Something dark lying behind the couch. So I walked to the back of the couch and picked it up. It was a large piece of plaid fabric. It matched the fabric of the couch perfectly. As I glanced at Mary, I discovered that a 2-foot circle of cloth had been cut out of the back with a pair of scissors. I stood there in shock for a second, holding the limp fragment in my hand. I was standing at the scene of a crime. Mary had been murdered, stabbed in the back, and her heart cut out. In a flash, I had a good idea who the murderer was, and a pretty good idea why. The pieces snapped into place in my head. I could just see Justin and Rachel heading upstairs, scissors in hand, with a neat idea of how to go make a tunnel somewhere else.